What I'm working on at the moment, plastic recycling, to be part of developing solutions for these issues, that's really motivating. That's what I enjoy.
We absolutely believe that plastic is a resource that should not be wasted.
We've always been producing plastic, using plastic and disposing of plastic without really designing with the end in mind and without designing for circularity. Now we can use plastic and use it as a feedstock. We can actually take it back into new applications, we can take it back into an oil, and we can make this plastic industry circular. We don't do it on our own. But having said that, we do have unique capabilities as a material science company that can actually contribute towards solving this problem.
When I finish, I want to be able to look back and think I was part of a team that worked towards ending plastics waste in the environment.
Hello, my name is Melanie Noronha. I'm a senior editor at the Economist Intelligence Unit's Public Policy and Thought Leadership Division. And I am pleased to welcome you to today's Insight Hour, hosted by the Economist's World Ocean Initiative and supported by Dow. Today's discussion will focus on collaborating across the value chain to minimize marine plastic pollution in emerging markets. Now, this session is a part of the Economist webinar series designed to continue conversation and engagement with our World Ocean Summit audience. We have the first World Ocean Summit Asia Pacific scheduled to take place virtually from December 6th to the 10th, and the 9th Annual World Ocean Summit scheduled for next March from the 1st to the 3rd in Lisbon, Portugal. We look forward to welcoming you to both these events and to our forthcoming webinars. Our next webinar is on July 7th on how business can drive positive ecological change in the ocean, and that's supported by Mars Pet Care. Now, getting back to the discussion today, we often talk about the need for collaboration to address environmental issues and drive ocean sustainability. But what does that really mean? Particularly in the context of ocean sustainability, a recent survey by the Economist Intelligence Unit found that addressing plastic pollution is the top priority in restoring ocean health for about 60% of the general public. In addition to initiatives to reduce and reuse plastic, there is a serious waste management challenge that really needs to be addressed, as it allows plastic waste to leak into rivers, into seas, into the ocean, particularly in emerging markets. So how should policymakers, business, academia, and society collaborate, and on what solutions should they work together on? And today, I'm hoping we can answer this question. Indeed, today's session itself is an exercise in collaboration, bringing together a plastic producer, a collection organization, a recycling company, and an environmental activist. And I am pleased to introduce you to our panelists here today. We have Zhang, Sustainability Director of Packaging and Specialty Plastics Asia Pacific at Dow. We have Akshay Shah, Vice Chair at the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. We have Dian Kurniawati, Founder and CEO at Tridi Oasis. And last but not least, we have Afroz Shah, Advocate and United Nations Champion of the Earth. So warm welcome to our panelists today, and I'm eager to kick off this discussion. So over the course of the next hour, I would like to structure the discussion into three main parts, and that's collaboration on investment, collaboration on waste collection, and collaboration on consumer education. And before we get into those questions, I'd like to set the scene, and Afroz, I'll need your help with that. Could you tell us a little bit more about why waste management is really such an issue, particularly in developing countries?
Let me, Melanie, start by saying we are too many on the planet. That's a big issue at this point of time. 7 billion of us. The other species are gasping for breath, Having said that, waste management creates peculiar issues all around us. We see that. Look at me, a young person who lives on the beachfront on the ocean. I can't go for a swim. I can't go for a walk on a beach. It can be mentally traumatic. I'm a water baby, I love. So issues which are not only concerned with the existence of yourself as a human being, but the existence of other species. And they are very correlated, and waste management and circular economy seems to be playing a key role. In fact, I would like to pitch it further higher. It's not waste management, it's circular economy which we should be looking at. Waste management is a part of it. So the issue is, how do we live on our planet? We think it's my right to live as I want to. It starts with an individual, it goes to a company. So right from the designing stage to a consumer, to finally what happens to our oceans, lakes and rivers is all for us to see. At my beach when I started, it was 5.5 feet of plastic. We started cleaning. Being a lawyer, I was conscious. A lot of people misunderstand beach cleaning. They think beach cleaning means clean beaches. I must tell them beach cleaning is about changing mindset of people up. Every individual has some rights and it has to exist. Waste management fits into in this scheme in the simple way that every individual will have to understand, especially in an emerging market like in India. Look at my country. Look at my city, Mumbai. I'll give you an example. 25 million of us. And I work among 300 to 400,000 people every day in out with volunteers and me stepping out, being a lawyer who understood law, then he saw the law not being enforced at the ground. So there's a gap in waste management. What we talk, we don't do. And what we do, we don't put it out properly. So there's this whole completely gap which needs filling up. Take, for example, Mumbai, 25 million, 60% live in this conflict zone. None of them have waste management. Imagine every plastic they get. Say, for example, they get a shampoo sachet or milk pouches. It all lands into the river and eventually into the ocean. They get it and it's like out of sight, out of my mind. Then at the designing stage, now Zhang is here, he'll complement whatever I'm saying. Look at the designing stages, how our packaging is produced. Now, is it fit enough for waste management? Do these companies really understand that once they design a packaging, will it fit into the existing waste management system? Sadly, I'll have to give you bad news from the ground. Nothing seems to be working at the ground level. Of course, there are hopes. We are aspirational. We feel things will change. Hence, I do what I do, and thousands of people in Mumbai are doing it. Dow has joined me. It's a great collaboration. So we are working on it, thinking that waste management doesn't exist somewhere. And if it exists, these packagings are designed in such a way it can't give leeway. Like whatever I collect from 300,000, 400,000 people in Mumbai, it is very difficult to me to send it to recycling. So first it starts with designing is the problem. Then after, if it's designed properly, like milk pouches in Mumbai, perfectly recyclable, human beings, the mindset, they feel that every wet, dry garbage, it must be, all packaging are contaminated. I don't know, how do you take contaminated plastic into a recycling thing? Especially in a country like India, where water is scarcity, space is scarcity. You live in Mumbai in a 10 by 10 house, 6 people living. Where does he keep his garbage? And a contaminated garbage. How do you reach out to him? How do you train him up? How do you tell him that this plastic is perfectly recyclable? Can you send it to recycling? And then on the law front, there is a problem with the corporate of how it is manufactured. Then there's a problem with human beings, the consumers. And then there's a problem with law as well. You see, lawmakers are not in touch with ground realities. And one of my job is to give them the evidence saying that look at it, what's happening at the ground. What provokes a human being, a slum dweller in Mumbai, to go and buy a small sachet of shampoo? Can you not shift him to a bigger one? Or can you not give him saying that this sachet is recyclable? Now, what are the laws? Laws must handle the social aspect. We know that the theory of social engineering. When there's a problem, law must come to the rescue. Unfortunately, it's not. And you can't blame it. We are too many, Don't blame the lawmakers. Don't blame the corporates. I always tell it's for us, the blame must center around us. So waste management must be understood in this huge problem of right from plastic producers to consumers, and then finally to government policy. We have a lot to do. We have a lot to do for a whale to survive, Melanie. A whale, a shark, or a turtle is at our mercy at this point of time. And we want our bank balances to run high. We want our GDP to run high. Of course, we must do that. Nobody's telling you go backward and, do underdevelop. But a balance needs to be drawn up.
Thank you, Afroz, for really setting that scene. I think it's a complex issue, waste management, to say the least, and needs engagement and a shifting of mindset from design to sorting to dealing with contamination. So there's a lot of a very complex system that needs to be put together and scaled up. And of course, for that, we need investment. And so I want to focus on a very sort of a specific solution on collaborating on investment, and that's extended producer responsibility. Now, Ocean Conservancy says that EPR is actually the biggest opportunity to improve collection funding. So, Akshay, I want to come to you first on that. Do you agree with that? Has EPR helped in improving collection funding? And can you tell us a little bit about how it works?
So an EPR, an extended producer responsibility scheme, essentially brings everybody in the value chain, from the raw material producer to the packaging manufacturer to the packaging user, which in this case would be a brand, an FMCG brand, a filler or an importer of a packaged product, and then the retailer, even the supply chain operators who are bringing the product from A to B. And these people all contribute. Largely the packaging user, which is the brand that is benefiting from having the package to bring their product to the consumer, pays an EPR fee that is based on two factors: the weight of the material that is used in the packaging and the degree to which that material is recyclable. So the less recyclable, higher the fee; the more material, higher the fee. So this is then collected by a PRO, a producer responsibility organization, that is given a mandate to operate the EPR scheme in a given country for a particular waste stream or multiple waste streams. And then the role of the PRO is to take these EPR fees and redistribute them back to the waste management operators. So this is where we get the waste collectors, the waste sorters or material recovery facilities, and then it goes to the recyclers. And then from the recyclers, they would have offtake agreements so that the material can now go back into the circular value chain, either back into packaging, which is, I guess, the holy grail where we all want to get to. But sometimes there's an intermediate step, which is to use that material to make something else, because let's say, for example, a PET bottle or a yogurt cup, to become a new PET bottle or yogurt cup requires a food safe material, and decontaminating that material requires a lot of investments. So while that economy is being built up, you can have alternative uses for the plastic waste. So if I were to kind of put it in a simple way, the role of a producer responsibility organization is to sort of be like Robin Hood for the environment. We want to take money from those who are benefiting and redistribute it to those who can help us to manage this waste and bring it back into a circular economy, obviously creating jobs, protecting the planet, preventing waste from going into dump sites and landfills. So that's basically, I hope I explained it in a clear way. Think of it like EPR is a Robin Hood.
Absolutely. I think you've given us a great character to reference there. So thank you so much, Akshay, for that. I want to get Dian's views on EPR as well. Dian, we've spoken so many times before, and you've said a steady supply of waste is essential for the economic viability of a recycling facility. Does EPR help with that equation?
Yes, thank you, Melanie. Yes, absolutely. This will help and create a big impact for recyclers like us. As we know, recycling facility is kind of like a little bit like a manufacturing, right? So we're talking about the economies of scale as well. So having a sustainability or secured raw materials in terms of the quantity that will ensure the machine will operate in efficient manner. And it's not only about the quantity as well, but also we're talking about the quality. We know that the high value of recycled plastics needs a high value of the raw materials, which is the plastic waste itself. And I believe with the proper EPR in place, then we can collect the waste directly from the source in a better quality. And as Akshay mentioned, that we can incentivize as well everyone along the supply chain. And so it's a win-win for everyone. And we can see already, I think, the good example of that. For example, like in Europe, they have a proper EPR and the collection rate then it's high, and it's also at the end of the day that improves the environment and economic itself.
That's really great. A really important point. I think economies of scale and the quality of the waste that's collected, that's really important for this to be economically viable. Akshay, I do want to come back to you on this just as we round off the discussion on EPR. Could you tell us what are the challenges in implementing EPR in developing countries? Maybe 2 important lessons for those who do want to implement EPR in their own countries.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the first thing to sort of understand, there's more than 200 EPR schemes around the world, and experience has shown is that an EPR model is the most successful way of getting everybody together. If individual companies, brands, manufacturers try to get the waste out of the environment, we're all duplicating our efforts. So the first thing is that the EPR model itself is a proven successful model. Now, if we try to take this EPR model into an emerging market where formal waste management as a process or an industry doesn't exist, then we have essentially 2 challenges. One is that segregation at source is not a behavior, is not a culture, is not a practice, it's not mandated. So the cleaner the material is at the time it leaves the source, which could be the kitchen, it could be the office, it could be wherever the packaging is being consumed, the cheaper it will be to recycle that material. We're making all the lives of every waste collector, segregator, sorter, recycler a lot easier, but we're also saving a lot of energy. We're also saving a lot of water because the recycling process is very energy and water intensive. So it's not just about saying, okay, let's slap on a law in emerging markets to make sure segregation at source happens. It's a lot about behavior change at the individual person, household, office, workplace level. The second thing in emerging markets is the ratio between collected waste and discarded waste. And this again goes back to not having formal waste management infrastructure. In Kenya, where we have the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization that was formed recently, we are, it's first of all, the other challenge in emerging markets is that very difficult to collect data. So we don't really know what the real statistics are. But, I guess a safe estimate is to say that 70% of the waste is collected through some kind of garbage trucks. Majority of it does go to landfills and dump sites. And 30% of the waste is discarded in an irresponsible way, which ends up in the environment, including the oceans. So improving the infrastructure for waste collection, providing places for waste disposal is both again a regulatory as well as a change of hearts and minds among consumers. So these are the 2 major sort of areas around emerging markets being able to transform. I would say, if I can add a third one, it's the economies of scale. And I'm particularly talking about Kenya or smaller economies where there isn't enough waste being generated to actually put in the expensive investments to recycle in massive volumes, which then means that the recycled material cannot get back to food grade. So a lot of aggregation needs to be done across multiple countries to justify such investments. So all it means is that getting true circular economy in an emerging market, which has a smaller economy, is simply a matter of time as this aggregation happens.
Thank you, Akshay. That's great. I do want to, just moving beyond EPR a little bit, Han, I want to come to you next. Just about the role plastic producers now play in collaborating with investors for downstream activities such as recycling activities. So, and this was actually a question posed by Akshay when we were discussing earlier. So what is the roadmap for developing materials that enable recycling, but also enable have an ability to track the material through the value chain?
Okay, well, first of all, let me give you an overall picture of what we are doing as a plastic producers. So we all know plastics are essential to society, no matter if it's energy efficiency, low carbon economy, or safer material. But plastic waste doesn't belong in our environment. There are too much in rivers, landfills, and oceans. So as one of the largest producers of polyethylene resins, it's our ambition to become the most sustainable material science company. Last year, we launched two very ambitious targets. One is by 2030, Dow will help us stop the waste by enabling 1 million metric tons of plastic to be collected, reused, or recycled through our direct actions and partnerships. The other one is by 2035, we will help close the loop by having 100% of our products sold into packaging applications be reusable or recyclable. So in order to achieve these two targets, we need to do three things. One is make sure no plastic waste end up in the natural environment. That's why we're partnering with people like Afroz to do beach cleanup, and also develop a community-based circular economy program so that nobody in the future will throw their waste into the environment. The second part is really through innovation, innovate to achieve a circular economy. So we need a lot of technology. Before we develop a plastic to deliver a better performance. However, some of them, they may not be recyclable. In recent years, we developed a new technology like an all polyethylene solution. So we can replace those multi-material packaging with a mono material, and they can be easily recycled. We also develop a compatibilizer solutions, which I believe Dian will appreciate. Those solutions can deal with the contamination in the recycling stream and mix a different type of polymer and still create a high value recyclable materials out of those. And the third part is really through partnership. We need to maximize our impact through partnership. For example, Dow is the founding investor of Circular Capital, an investment management firm dedicated to financing companies that prevent the flow of plastic waste towards the ocean while advancing the circular economy. And Dian's company is one of the first company who received the investment from Circular Capital. I think the topic we want to discuss is also the role of investment. And clearly we see investment can help those recyclers to improve their capability and further advance a circular economy. So to your question about how can we develop a technology to trace plastics, that's a very good question. And I would say this is even important for recycled plastic because they are, after all, derived from waste. And every batch of waste, you may encounter different product specification and the level of contamination. A technology can improve the traceability of the waste is the key to ensure quality. And also besides the quality, buyers of PCR, particularly those like brand owners, also want to be sure that a post-consumer recycled material is being sourced legally and ethically. And in order in order to ensure that a digital technology is very important. By digitizing the waste management system, we can improve traceability, increase transparency, and we are working with many partners to develop those kind of technology so that we can have a higher traceability of plastic waste.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Han. And you've obviously laid out a lot of exciting developments in this space. And I do want to come back to you on the points you just raised about technology a little later in this discussion. Dian, before we move on to the next segment, just to, again, close off the section on collaborating for investment, I just want to understand the role recycling companies such as yours play. Are you feeding back information upstream in a way to say, this is the quality of the material or the recycled material, and therefore making the space a bit more attractive for investors? How are you collaborating with other parts of the value chain to attract investors to the space?
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. So, like what Han already mentioned, right, from the downstream itself, most of them they're collaborating to participate in the investment, for example, like with circulate capital. But again, in order to be able to be investable, so we need to be, it's not only sustained in terms of the environment sustainability, but also financially sustained. And like we come back again in our first topic, like with the economics of scale and so on and so on. And from our case, then having kind of like a backward integration, that will be a beneficial for us. Then we can have like a more or consolidate the volume and aggregate all the waste collected. So then that will also improve our economies of scale and make the business case more justifiable for the investment.
Great, thank you. I think that really helps, again, set the scene for why we do need so much collaboration, so much sharing of knowledge and expertise within the value chain. So that's really fantastic. I do want to move on to the next section on collaboration on waste collection. And Afroz, I want to come to you here. In some of your speeches, you've described how people have criticized beach cleanups because, they liken it to mopping the floor while the tap continues to leak. But you've countered saying that in these efforts to mop up the floor, you have discovered and learned more about the leakages themselves. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you think are some of the critical gaps in waste management that you've learned, or the points of leakage that you've learned through your efforts of beach cleanup?
First of all, Melanie, I must preface my answer by saying that whenever we talk about waste management or circular economy, beach cleanups, we think we are here to provide a solution. Sorry, I must bust the bubble. This world is in for a long haul. The amount of damage we have done to our environment, at this moment, it looks irreversible. So for me to say that this is the solution, for me to say that is the solution, is something too far-reaching. And it will be naive on my part to say that. And not only me, any citizen who lives responsibly on this planet, 7 billion of us creating a mess all around. Look at our lifestyle. I always say, go in your house, check your garbage. Your garbage is what you are on this planet. The amount of garbage you generate, you may talk on macro level saying, wow, I am sustainable, my company is sustainable. The moment you open your garbage, you know what the solution is. Having said that, waste management, I'll tell you, from my pure experience working with house to house among 300, 400,000 people for past 6 years, cleaning the beach of some 60, 70 million kgs, cleaning the mangroves, I will tell you waste is a socio-economic problem, okay? So the moment we do kg versus kg, we are asking for trouble. Why I say it's a socio-economic problem, as Akshay rightly pointed out, there is something which goes with our habit of how we produce and how we consume. Now, is this all the time governed by money? No, it is governed by our social choices. In India, we are 1.5 billion. A citizen in Mumbai does something different. A citizen in Delhi does something different. A citizen in Delhi, in Madras, Chennai does something different. So because of those social choices, your waste problem cannot be now say that kg versus kg. And I'll give you a live example of what I face at the ground. We have milk pouches in India. Okay, those milk pouches, each one half a liter, 0.3 kg of plastic. Single plastic, perfectly recyclable. It can make a great product for a circular economy. You have to see at the rivers and the lakes and the beaches and from the house when we pick up thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces. Now, if you ask a chairman and managing director of a company who produces milk, he says, I made it perfectly recyclable. They had to just sell it. But I'll give you the economics behind it. 0.3 grams, one packet. For 1 kg, you required some 3,000 packets. You have to collect it over 1 year. And you know how much is it going to get? 16 rupees in Indian rupees, 16 rupees. Now, a person who's got a house which is 10 by 10, 100 square feet, can he store those 16 rupees for 1 year to get the money back? This is where we are missing the point. If we say waste management is purely a financial issue, we'll not get the planet right. But if we say it's a socio-economic problem, then it is. Hence EPR. You see, EPR is a great concept, provided EPR is framed properly and implemented properly. Well, it's a great collaboration. The consumers, people who are involved in waste management, the government, everybody comes on board. But the problem is we talk too much. Melanie, as a human race, we just talk. The delivery is zero. Debates and debates, conversation and conversation, mics after mics. Conversation in 5-star hotel, conversation at the beach, conversation at the mangroves, conversation right now with you. The question is, how far are we going to implement? What is that EPR model which is going to work in a country like India, 1.5 billion? Imagine 1.5 billion, you want to put a policy. We saw our Prime Minister tried different efforts, Narendra Modi ji, and we see the effect at the ground level, what's happening. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan was launched by my Prime Minister, Clean India. And look, after 6 years, I'm still struggling. Sometimes I sleep in the night and I wonder, what am I doing? I was a lawyer at Bombay High Court and look what I'm doing. Picking up garbage at the beach, picking up garbage at the mangroves, training up people. And that's why you see, when you draw the broad parameters, as we say in English, the devil always lies in the details. The detail filling must be properly done up and based on evidence. My beach cleanup should not call for a ban. Sorry, it's a wrong method. A lot of people get worried, the beaches are full of plastic, hence ban this. It's a wrong method. You'll have to find out which are the plastic which are there. Why are people behaving in a manner which is prompting them, in spite of it being recyclable, it's got a money attached to it, it's perfectly recyclable, single-use plastic, and it doesn't go. So these are the questions in waste management. Hence I say waste management is a socio-economic problem. So please don't do weight by money all the time. There are some social aspects which we will have to look into, Melanie. And that is a crucial aspect. If we get that right, we'll get everything right.
Thank you, Afroz. And I think from what you said, what I really took away from that was the number one, the scale of the waste management issue, but the fragmentation as well. You said there's so many little packets, there's so many houses, there's so many people. And I think in developing countries such as India, Indonesia, the waste management collection efforts themselves are so fragmented, often run by informal waste pickers. So actually, Han, I want to come to you next. Could you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing, and particularly the role of technology and digital platforms to potentially coordinate some of these waste collection efforts in developing countries?
Sure. First of all, I agree with Afroz. Waste management is a social economic issue, but it's also a technology issue, and I would say technology can help. Over the past several years, we made a lot of progress in product innovation and manufacturing. As I mentioned, we can make a packaging perfectly recyclable. But at the end of the day, we need all waste to be collected so that they can be processed properly. So if you look at the waste collection, it hasn't changed over the past 50 years, while packaging has changed significantly. So I think during this COVID-19 time, most of us are becoming more digitized. The question is, can we digitize the waste industry? If you look at the waste value chain, Melanie, as you mentioned, it's highly fragmented, and there are so many stakeholders. We have a waste generator, like consumers and the business. We have the aggregators. They collect, bale, and sometimes clean the waste. We also have a waste processors. They are the recyclers or end user of a waste. And often there are gaps between each stakeholder in the waste value chain. This leads to inefficiency, lack of transparency, low traceability, and eventually loss of value. So if we have a digital platform to connect all players together, we can ensure transparency, traceability, free flow of information, and then maximize the value for each player. So in India, we partner with a company called Recycle to launch the Rethink Plus program in Pune. It's a pilot program. The Rethink Plus program digitally connected each player in the waste ecosystem. The consumer or business can use the platform to inform a waste collector on what kind of waste that they need to pick up, the quantity and also the location of those waste. And when they trade the waste with a collector, they also receive points and other benefits. In return, waste collector receives higher quality waste, which they can sell at a higher price. And eventually, recycler has a better quality feedstock and can make a better products, post-consumer recycled products. The platform also enables a digital payment and online documentation, which ensure 100% transparency and traceability. This is really critical to brand owners under the EPR scheme. So if they are required to pay someone to take their waste, they want to know what the end use of those waste is. And Rethink Plus program makes it happen. So this is just one example. Technology and innovation can help modernize the waste collection system and make it better.
Great. So, Dian, what I wanted to come to you next was, and you touched on this already a little bit before, but could you tell us a little bit more about how you work with a waste management company on collection and sorting? If there's a lesson that you can share with the audience about a successful experience, and essentially how that improves the performance of your recycling facility?
Yes, thank you, Melanie. So we work closely with our waste collectors as our partners to supply the waste and the plastic waste. And these waste collectors are informal sectors in Indonesia. So, for example, like those junk shops, they normally got the plastic waste from the waste pickers. And then all the trash banks that they got the plastic waste from the residents where they are located. And then what we have done together with them is in the beginning, actually for them, sometimes they don't have the same knowledge on how to sort the materials and how to make sure that the waste that they will send to us is high quality one. So what we have done last time with them is to train them and to give them more information and transparency and also the knowledge like actually what kind of materials will be transformed from the plastic waste that they send to us, and then what kind of final product that we produce, and then what kind of final application that actually the waste that they collected can be used or implemented after that. So by having this kind of knowledge, so they have a better understanding. Oh, okay, if I can sort it out properly, then the recyclers or our customers can process it very well, and then they can have a long-term business and so on. Then we can also supply them in a long period way. And apart from that, of course, it has higher value if it's sorted out correctly and cleaned out correctly as well. So that's one of the story. And then the second one is also how to make them like engage with us. So we have like a few programs. For example, we can collaborate with the companies as well. And especially like during COVID, we can make some like donation or kind of like a training, safety training, or explain to the families or women how to manage the like financial planning for the family and so on. So that's kind of like a different knowledge to make them also financially sustainable, so then they can keep collecting and creating more impact on the waste collection in their area.
Thank you, Diane. That was such an excellent and useful example that I think a lot of people can take and implement right away. So thank you for sharing that. I do want to move on to the last section, and I do want to then finally keep some time for some audience questions as well. So moving on to the last section on collaboration with collaboration on consumer education. Afroz, I want to come to you. beach cleanups have been vital in raising awareness and bringing people together. And this is actually a question from Akshay. So can you tell us a little bit more about changing hearts and minds of consumers, particularly in developing countries? Can you tell us more?
The young people in a household play a very crucial role, especially youngsters. The kind of consumer makes choices. They drive their parents to buy this and buy that. So at our beach cleanup, I'll give you an example of an 8-year-old girl. We run these small things at our cleanups. It's not just about picking plastic. So take, for example, at beach cleanups, you find a lot of these biscuit packagings. Biscuits in India are packed in very small packaging. Very difficult to recycle. It's contaminated. And especially if it lands in the ocean, it's impossible to get it back or in the river. So we tell them, can you not get into circular economy? Can you buy biscuits without that packaging? How do you go about it? So in India, we have a lot of local bakeries. And I'm not for a moment suggesting that compromise your safety standards or health standards, So the young girl, 8-year-old, goes and buys her biscuit without packaging. Now that's a perfect example. And she'll come back after 2-3 weeks to me saying that, sir, and we have this hand-holding session at the beach, where we give people to talk about what they have learned from beach cleanup and what are the changes they go back at home. So the girl, 8-year-old girl, I still remember very vividly. She said, sir, I bought my biscuits this month without a single packaging. That's where, your job is done. We can look at the macro picture and say that, oh, these are the numbers, these are figures, this must change, this must change. But these are small changes which have huge impact. That girl will remember all her life now that she has to live peacefully with a child of a whale or a shark or a turtle. That's what we need to convey to these young people, of saying that it's not only about waste management and how efficient the system is. It's about your rights versus the rights of other species. We need to balance this. Consumers must know that if I buy a product, it has got an effect on the planet in these ways, right from the production to the packaging, and finally, if it is littered in the environment. And hence, I always tell beach cleanup is not about cleaning beaches. Beach cleanup is far more about influencing people's mind and heart. So consumers play a very vital role, and these kind of small communication helps. And we do it all the time. A lot of people do environmental protection as an event management. That's also a problem. It's good to have World Environment Day. It's good to have World Ocean Day. It's good to have World Earth Day, but it must become monotonous. It must become a part of our life every day. Every action of yours, whether you go to a mall to pick up something, or you drive your car, or put your air condition, you must weigh the pros and cons of what's happening to the planet. And that's what these beach cleanup teaches you. And coming back to circular economy, EPR, where we work in the slums, like I have a lot of interaction with these villagers, in the forest here. There's a forest here right in the heart of Mumbai. Not many people know it. And we work with 43 villages. So we are having these small interaction with the villagers, that they get the packaging, and the packaging contaminated is left out, and the dogs come to eat it. Look at what has happened. The dogs come to eat it, and the leopard comes to eat the dog because it's an easy prey. So there's a human-animal conflict arisen because of garbage. So we work around that, saying that if you don't leave your contaminated plastic out and wash and keep it, we can take it back for recycling. With the Dow, we work on a river Methi, which is like a big river in Mumbai, 18 kilometer. As a child, I actually swam in that river at the start. It's all gone, turned into a sewage. And when you look back, my father used to take me there. Sometimes you sit and cry. What has happened to this river? And these are, you see, on that river bank of River Methi, some 5 to 6 million people. Every day they send their solid waste into that river, liquid waste into the river. And what I call the third problem is the mindset. Now, which waste management, which EPR policy can tackle that 6 million people, not to throw waste into that river, not to lead liquid waste? So these are a lot of issues, habit changes, social things, which this EPR policy must incorporate. I work very closely with the government of India here and government of Maharashtra. We have a lot of conversation about different things. So I tell them, take evidence, make this policy evidence-based. Do not do like what we call in law, ipsi dixit, I feel this is right, so I must write it and get away with it. No. It must be evidence-based. Some evidence must come from the ground, what is happening to Mother Nature. And that evidence must drive your policy. And if you make a good policy or a good law, then you must have a good enforcement based on that evidence. Otherwise, you see, we'll keep on making good laws. You'll have 5 companies, 10 companies, 10 environmentalists, 50 environmentalists 100 people doing it, it won't take us any further. And we'll be debating after 5 years, the oceans have become far more worse. The lakes have become far more worse. The rivers are far more. So these are things which we need to contemplate. Policymakers need to contemplate. Corporates need to contemplate. Consumers need to complement. And people who are in waste management, must contemplate what is that evidence which must drive our working. What is that evidence from the ground which must drive? One is saying that, okay, there's a waste management, this way is easily handleable. Which is that difficult waste? Which is that multi-layer packaging which can't be recycled and which is contaminated and which is creating havoc in the environment?
Absolutely. No, I think, yeah, definitely valid points on evidence-based policies. And thank you for sharing that really endearing story about the need for the simple and the small changes that affect everyday life that then aggregate into something wider. So thank you for sharing that. Akshay, I want to move to you on, again, one more technique perhaps to engage consumers, to improve consumer education, and to collaborate on this. Can you tell us a little bit more about how organizations such as yours are doing it? When we spoke earlier, you talked about using QR codes. Can you tell us more?
Sure. So the QR code is part of a digital platform, and that digital platform is one, you can say, building block. Obviously, there are other building blocks, such as reaching the hearts and minds, showing examples, stories, life stories, impact stories. Legislation is another building block. Waste management infrastructure is another building block. I feel that the digital platform with a QR code can actually help all the other building blocks to kind of come together. So what do I mean by that? Is that the best way that a consumer packaged good is able to raise awareness is through the way that consumer packaged brands are already advertising to their consumers, which is on the packaging, which is in the media, above the line, below the line. So if you have a brand that is a member of a PRO, they get issued a unique QR code that would be printed on each individual different type of package that they have, whether it's a half-liter bottle or a 20-gram sachet or whatever it is. Each individual SKU would get a unique QR code from the PRO. This QR code would then contain a story. It would talk about whether this material is 100% recyclable or not, whether it contains a certain amount of recycled content or not. If it is recyclable, how do you segregate it so that we get, the polypropylenes, for example, together and separate it from the polyethylenes, for example. It also tells a story about the brand itself. So the brand behind that packaging, have they been contributing EPR fees? Have they been contributing to, ocean cleanups? Have they been contributing to consumer awareness? So it starts to hold everybody accountable. And finally, it is about the end consumer who makes the choice when they're going to buy that product off the shelf. Do they know the full story of what happened to that product and the brand behind that product, the material and the packaging, the upstream design behind that product? So at the moment, in emerging markets, not everybody's got a smartphone, or if they have, they're not using data. But we believe that problem will solve itself as the proliferation of cheaper smartphones and lower cost data will now make it easier for the QR code to be used. But it could also be, examples are like Facebook had come out with something called, I think, Free Basics, where a certain application could be used free of data. So why not have this application where you just want to scan the QR code before you choose to buy a product, so that you know whether you're making a responsible choice for the environment or not. So there's a lot that we can do with the QR code. The final thing that the QR code can also do is around the paper trail. We talked earlier about how does one bring investment into the waste management sector to put in the money to improve infrastructure for collection, for sorting and recycling. I don't think that money is just going to find itself into the waste management operators without a paper trail. companies have to be moving a certain amount of mass flows, segregating them, adding value, recycling them, and that is a financial transaction. So the QR code is also linked to the financial transaction, with integration with mobile money. So now that we've got a paper trail and there's a transaction happening, it becomes bankable. And so whether it is a recycler who wants to go to their bank and say, look, here's my input output, here's my revenue, I'd like to get a loan, or go to an equity investor and get an investment. All of that suddenly starts to make sense because we've got a paper trail that is on the back of this QR code. So it's a massive project that we're doing at KEPRO. And we're at the early stages of it, and it's something that I think once it is fully developed, we feel it can help to solve the problem, to bring all the different building blocks together to make an EPR successful.
Thank you, Akshay. I think the idea of using the QR code not only has benefits to the consumer, but to traceability, improving sorting, and then also to sort of information to give investors as well. So lots of benefits from it. Again, another project I'll be keen to keep an eye on. I do want to go to audience questions. We got a lot of questions from our audience, so I apologize for not being able to get to all of them. But let me just start with one from Julian from Maersk. And maybe, Han, this might be a good one for you. We didn't get to talk too much about advanced recycling technologies and the role that will play in the sector. So our question from Julian at Maersk is, how do you see the impact and innovations of companies such as Carbios for the industrial application of enzymes, which renders plastic waste compostable? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. To be transparent, I'm not familiar with this company, Carbios, and its technology. So I cannot comment on the detail of their technology. But I think in general, as a material science company, we always welcome innovation. We also need to evaluate the innovation from a scientific view. So no matter if it's a compostability or biodegradability, we need to look at it, we need to view it through life cycle approach and avoid any negative impact. We don't want to solve one problem in one life cycle stage and then shift the environmental burden to another life cycle stage. So like all materials, biodegradable or compostable materials should be selected based on the best overall combination of performance for a given application. In addition, biodegradability or composting is not a quick fix solution for waste management. It's not a solution for inappropriate waste management or littering, which we discussed quite a lot today. We believe whenever feasible, reduction, reuse, and recycling of plastics should be prioritized before considering composting or biodegradation. And also there are several other questions we need to understand before we talk about a technology or its role to play in the society. Some question like what infrastructure exists for the relevant compostable materials end of life, such as a disposable facility, collection system, sorting capability. The other question is like, does the introduction of those material to the market undermine the development of holistic waste management and recycling streams for recyclable polymers? And also we need to understand if there is a clear and effective labeling system for consumers to ensure proper use and disposable for those materials.
Thank you so much, Han. I want to quickly go to one more question from the audience, and this one's from Emily Saturino. And maybe Dian or Akshay, maybe one of you could take this one. What are the most efficient ways of separating and using all plastics collected from the sea? I don't know if either of you deal with waste collected directly from the sea or only through waste collected through municipalities, but it would be great to hear. Anyone wants to raise their hand on who wants to take this one? Well, Afroz has raised his hand, so maybe I'll go to him first.
Yeah, me and my volunteers have picked up more than 60 million kgs of plastic, you see, in past 6 years, thousands and thousands of them. The first problem with marine debris is they are fully contaminated, okay? And when I say contaminated, full of sand, full of fecal material in India, a lot of open defecation happens on the beaches and lakes and riverfronts, okay? And there is this untreated liquid sewage is running into our oceans and rivers here. So it is impossible to recycle marine debris. What we do is sometimes, we clean it through a machine called Bobcat, which is gifted to us by a company called Reliance in India. So we take that, and there is a Dow also providing us with machinery. So we volunteers go, pluck it out, and then we use the seawater to clean it whatever we can. It is a very difficult task. If somebody who's a technologist listening to it, please work on it.
Thank you so much, Afroz. Akshay or Dian, anyone wants to tackle this also about effective sorting approaches?
Yeah, I'd like
Yes.
to add the PRO perspective to address Afroz's point. It is true that low value plastics like multi-layer packaging will not be picked up by informal waste sector. And even if it is picked up by formal waste sector, it's not going to be recycled. So it'll either go into a dump site or a landfill or incineration. So the idea of a PRO to charge an EPR, a higher EPR for such type of problematic packaging, is to increase the value of that problematic packaging, and then pass that value back down to the rag picker, so that the rag picker gets an economic incentive to get that material before it goes into the rivers and the oceans. And that's, of course, it doesn't solve the problem of what happens with that material, because we still need to wait for the upstream design on the materials and the packaging production to allow for functionality to happen with a mono material rather than a multi-layered material. And I know Dow is working on that, but until then, there's got to be a way to prevent this constant stream of waste going in just by adding an economic value to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists for such an enriching discussion. We covered so much today. I think at the start, just emphasizing that plastic does not belong in the environment, and then putting in the solutions to address that. Waste management is a complex issue, and it starts from design and requires the entire set of stakeholders across the value chain to be involved. Economies of scale, which can be achieved possibly through solutions or regulation like EPR, can help improve the attractiveness to investors of the sector. There are opportunities to digitize waste management through examples such as the one that Han just shared with us today about Recycle in Pune. And then there's also really practical solutions about engaging with different actors within the value chain to train them to share knowledge, and then ensuring that the material you get for recycling is in the right state, because the less contamination, the better the performance of the recycling facility. And finally, there's so many ways to engage consumers. One that Akshay shared on the QR code to ensure that consumers are better informed and improving, the information throughout the system. But then coming together on efforts such as beach cleanups, which are raising awareness on the issue, is also vital. So thank you so much once again to our panelists. And thank you to Dow for supporting this webinar. And finally, thank you to our audience for your time. Hope you can join us on future webinars. Our next one is on July 7th. So please do stay tuned for that one. And thank you all, and do continue to stay engaged on initiatives for ocean sustainability.